salvation. You see, Capcom, that's all it takes. Wow. Mega Man 12 on the way? Nice. Let's talk. I'd love to help out. I think Mega Man's a great franchise. You got that Monster Hunter money, I've just been a big Mega Man fan in general. And when I say let's talk, it's honestly like, you guys got a newsletter? Yeah. Working for Mega Man would be a dream job for sure. But honestly, if you guys work on Mega Man 12 and there's a newsletter, nice. Sign me up. So one thing I've loved, over quite a few years now, and we're talking, this is about the mid-2010s this took off, was the whole Midwestern dad memes. And what's funny is how much that trope was pretty consistent, right? I for sure heard my dad, when we leave a restaurant, say to the family, "You guys ready to rock and roll?" Yeah. It's great. It's stuff like that. There were jokes about potholes, but to be honest, with the pothole thing, I will say I don't think road workers get a lot of credit to this day, and sadly I think people get angry at them when they're just doing their job. When it comes down to different like city councils, that could be a different story on where the budget might go. But I hope that people, when they get crowded in traffic, they're not blaming the workers in general, because they are fixing the potholes a lot of those times. But in general, the Midwestern memes, from a Southern, inflection in your accent from Arkansas, to the Wisconsin saying tacos, it's pretty crazy how wide range Midwestern culture can be, because there's so many states covering it, right? And one thing I love is when, I've realized that living in the Midwest, there are definitely two superpowers that I think a lot of people get here. And to me, it was just so normal. But once I started to go to more like tournaments, outside, honestly, still in the Midwest, we're talking Pokemon Nationals in Indianapolis since 2010, which then eventually became Columbus, Ohio. And even the one time I went to Pokemon Worlds in Nashville, that's still in the Midwest range. It's getting, towards Southern territory, but it's pretty close. I mean, it was just one state away for Kansas City, Missouri. And so, even then, at those meetings, at those conventions, you are getting people from out of state, out of like the Midwest states, and out of country. And this is years ago, it was a big kind of wake-up call, in a nice way. They were being kind of kind about it. But the two superpowers I'm talking about is, one, we can drive for hours and it doesn't feel like a long time. And so what I mean by that is, when I went to Pokemon Nationals, I would play against players from New York and California, and they would talk about their flights, right? And I remember like a New York to Indianapolis flight was only a few hours. And then they asked me, in common courtesy, you're making, an introduction of where you're from before you play against your opponent. And that's just kind of a general thing in Pokemon. And I remember when they asked me, did you drive from Kansas City? And, the drive to Indianapolis is about 7.5 hours. And, they often would just go, whoa, I would not do that. It happened enough to the point where I'm like, is this an abnormality outside of the Midwest? And then I think about, in big cities and coastal states, it might not be as big to travel by car as much for that long. And then, shout outs to TRK. He's visited here twice from the Netherlands. And to him, he's pointed out how much we travel by car here. And, from the Netherlands, Germany is, right next door. And, there's quite a few other countries. And when you think about that, it's like like Netherlands to Germany is just a few hour drive, right? It's just a few hours. To me, in Missouri, Kansas City to St. Louis is a little over 4 hours. And to me, like, that's totally fine. That's like a half. Some people would consider that too long even for a road trip. And to me, I'm like, oh, it's like a mini road trip, you know? And it's in the same state. And so it's really interesting when that's been normal to me. And then I think about why has that been normal? And it's like, you know, I have a lot of good memories with traveling so far. You know, by being in the middle of the country, you can kind of go to so many different states in just a few hour drive, right? You know, I've joked that Missouri is like the Cyrodiil of the United States. In Elder Scrolls, Cyrodiil is the middle country. And honestly, what's cool about Missouri is when you start going a bit more north, it starts to look a bit, well, more like, you know, Iowa. When you go a bit more south, it starts to look a bit more like Arkansas. East, it starts to look more like Illinois and Kentucky, you know, and west, you can start getting some Oklahoma. And it's really interesting about that kind of almost like a sample platter. And then if you want to get like a good core Missouri identity, it's like Columbia, where the University of Missouri is, Jefferson City. But yeah, Missouri's such a cool state, and it's fun to kind of realize that by living in the heart of the country, you do have access to a lot of different events in the Midwest in driving range. Now, obviously, once it gets to coastal states, you often will fly. But there are times where you might have to go for a drive, and that's the fun part, is also that driving can be a lot more inexpensive. And so I think also, honestly, I think the Midwestern superpower of driving definitely can refine patience. It refines productivity, because you're like, eyes on the road, but what can I listen to? When I went to the University of Central Missouri, I did a little under 2 hours of a commute each day for school. It was about 45, 50 minutes to and from. And that to me was a good way to hone what can I do on the way there and back. I listen to music a lot, but the Midwestern Superpowers is like, I don't mind doing this. And sure, you know, put on some podcasts. Let me educate myself about different topics, science, politics, history. So definitely that kind of in sync with being accustomed to long distance travel. A lot of fun. The other superpower is we're kind of accustomed to just, you know, throwing some Yahtzee dice for the weather. Shouts to my dad. I genuinely think he's a great meteorologist, and he's a very busy guy. Not just with teaching, but, you know, being a weatherman in the Midwest, you're oftentimes, again, you have to kind of read the Yahtzee dice that are rolled each day. And, you know, as a Midwestern citizen, we're used to just, you know, wearing a hoodie one week, and then the next week you can wear shorts. Sometimes we wear a hoodie with shorts. But I think it's good. It can help you be accustomed to a lot of different environments when you go to travel. Missouri really is the Cyrodiil of the United States. It's pretty nuts, but it's a lot of fun, and I've had a lot of good memories with my friends for these events, and I look forward to future traveling antics and getting used to, you know, constantly adjusting to what dice are rolled for the weather and making sure people are safe around me. I love Mondays.